Hello, my name is Sian Basker. I am Co-Chief Executive at Data Orchard. Let me introduce my other panelists today, Keith Scott. Keith, give everyone a wave. Keith is Head of Data Management at Myeloma UK. And Yasmin Friedmann, give everyone a wave. Yasmin is Head of Data at Neath Port Talbot Council, and they'll talk a bit more about themselves and their organisations in a moment. I'd also like to introduce Libby Harkins, who's my colleague at Data Orchard, and she will be providing a bit of tech support and backup today. So how it's going to play today is we've got an hour together, just under an hour. I'm going to do a quick introduction to organisational data maturity assessment. Then Keith is kindly going to share their story from Myeloma UK's experience of taking an assessment and what's happened since. And then Yasmin will talk about their experience at Neath Port Talbot Council, a different organisation, but similar process. And then we're going to go to a Q&A. So I'm hoping we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. You can see on your toolbar, many of you, I hope, will be familiar these days with the webinar Q&A situation. But basically, if you've got questions for either of the panelists or myself, indeed, then please put them in the Q&A. If you see somebody else's question, which you think looks brilliant and you'd like to hear the answer of, then please upvote that question and we'll try and take them in order of popularity with our audience today. And then at the end of the session, I'll just kind of review a little bit around the summary of options on what Data Orchard offers around data maturity assessment and provide some contact details and things for you to follow up on. I should say Data Orchard is a social enterprise and we set up in 2013, and we've spent a very long time now researching and understanding the concept of data maturity and creating tools and resources to help organisations, specifically in the non-profit sector, but also in the commercial sector as well. It's increasingly being used. Just for a bit of context, we define data maturity as an organisation's journey towards improvement and increased capability in using data. We have a very broad and holistic definition of data. All of it, we're talking about all of the sort of structured data in systems and in spreadsheets and databases, but also all of your words, all of the images, all of your videos, the works really, maps. It goes on. Audio even is part of the collection of data assets that an organisation might have. So we've designed this framework, and this is what we've been evolving since we began researching this. Our first framework came out in 2017, and we've revised it over time. But essentially, it's held these same principles, which are that in assessing data maturity in organisations, we look at 7 key factors, and a couple of them are quite common and obvious, like data and the tools to collect and store and analyse and report it. A couple of them are very much about purpose, so how you're using data, how data is influencing the way in which you deliver your services and influencing your internal capabilities and delivering rewards for you. Ever such a lot of it is about people. So leadership, culture and skills are all about people. And our assessment is really a kind of more live and tangible version of the framework, and it essentially asks a set of questions of users around those 7 themes, so you can delve in to a number of areas. So culture is looking at behaviours around openness as well as behaviours around security and protection. It's looking at team approach and self-questioning. So I won't go into a lot of detail now, but the principle of how the assessment works is that we've designed it really to be for everyone to complete. So it's not aimed at very technical audiences or at data people. In fact, it's aimed at almost everybody who's not a data person. So the idea is, in the organisation version of this assessment, is we create a custom assessment for your team. Everybody in the team, if possible, or as many people as you can get, complete an assessment, and they get their own personal report on how they have scored the organisation. But all those results are combined and collated into a whole organisation report. And usually that will lead to quite a lot of discussion. Often people don't agree. There's quite a lot of disparity of opinion. People see data differently in different roles and parts of the organisation. But it's really an idea of getting a cohesive overview of the whole organisation in order that everyone can work together to take action. So a quick example around customization. Obviously, we brand the assessment with your own logo, and you can create some questions. So you can have up to 5 questions of different types. Pick one, free text, multiple choice. So you may have your own questions that you want to ask of your staff as well as part of the assessment process. So the really exciting bit is when you take assessments at scale, and we have evolved not just the tool but also a whole process that goes around that. So we've got a whole resource pack that supports organisations through before, during, and after an assessment. One of the things that we are really thrilled about is the ability of the tool to facilitate better conversations about data. And so we build that social element into how the assessment is taken and what happens with the assessment results after the assessment. So just before I finish, we've got 3 packages. We have a bronze, silver, and gold version. I'll talk a little bit more about those afterwards. Essentially, they are all about engaging lots of people in your organisation. They just vary in the level of detail at the end and how much work we support organisations with in moving more to action after the assessment. So without further ado, I am going to hand over to our speakers. So both organisations, both Myeloma UK and Neath Port Talbot, were among the many organisations that completed an assessment, I think back end of last year, early this year. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and invite Keith Scott, who is Head of Data Management at Myeloma UK. Hi, Keith.
Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me okay. I'm Keith Scott. I'm the Head of Data Management at Myeloma UK. And yeah, I'm going to take you through a little whistle-stop tour of all the things that we did with our assessment. So
Sorry, Keith, you're muted.
hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back.
Great. Okay. Yeah, so a little bit about us. I'm Keith Scott. I'm the Head of Data Management at Myeloma UK. We are a blood cancer charity, and I've put some stats there. I know that as data audiences like some stats. So there's 24,000 myeloma patients in the UK. It's the 19th most common cancer, and yeah, it's the 3rd most common type of blood cancer. And we are an organisation exclusively dedicated to the disease and the related conditions. We employ about 100 staff, and sort of uncommonly, we're headquartered in Edinburgh. Rather than down south, but a lot of our staff are actually spread out across the UK, working remotely. And yeah, our data team within that 100 staff is small but mighty. We're 3 people, including me. And yeah, we've got I think Ray is actually on the call today as well. He's part of the team. So hi, Ray. Let's see if I can get this. So why did we decide to do an assessment? So I was quite new in the role. And I was trying to figure out how we could get some kind of baseline to measure from. And I knew I had a data strategy to write and present to boards. sort of this year. We did that back in February, and the strategy was meant to go to board in May. I just thought this, when I found the framework, it looked like a really good foundation to kind of establish a clear baseline. It was so holistic, as Sian was saying, so it seemed like a really good way to kind of I guess, present a really complex thing to possibly board members that might not be technical, a way to kind of come to a measure that we could, yeah, have a baseline and then improve from. I came from higher education and I was so used to having so much benchmarking data about expenditure and staff and what people were doing and where the money was coming from. And I was kind of missing that a little bit in the third sector. So the benchmarking element was quite, yeah, that was quite a good kind of temptation as well. And we'd done some internal workshops in the charity with some consultants called Data for Action that were really good, and we'd kind of validated some questions that we had around our work that we couldn't really answer easily at the time with kind of how we were collecting data, maybe the questions we were asking, and I guess just the tools and things that we were using too. So that was quite a good kind of North Star a little bit, and thinking about alongside these assessments is to think about, yeah, where do we want to go, and what would good look like for us. We had a huge, big, long list of to do. So there was lots of things in the charity that people wanted to fix. There was pain points for various teams, but having the results of an assessment, I thought would really be helpful to us to prioritize, because obviously you can't do it all at once. So it was good for us to kind of focus down on that. We also had a really established internal data working group, which was great because they're really engaged colleagues. They really know the data within their own little functions. That really gave us, well, gave me some confidence that we would have a head start on some of this work too. So that was great. So yeah, I thought I'd just sort of see what was involved. So we chose the bronze level at the time. We didn't have like a huge big kind of budget or anything to do this work, but the bronze level was actually quite a good level for us at the time. We chose to do an online workshop with staff, which was great because it really was quite helpful just to kind of set the scene. And as Sian was saying, just like, what do we mean by data? What's covered here? What perspective should you think about when you're answering these questions? And there was some really valuable analysis afterwards about the just sort of breakout workshop discussions around some of the themes and people's comments and their kind of their sentiments around stuff. So that was really useful when writing the strategy afterwards too. We got really good participation. We got some really good buy-in from the leadership team and the CEO and things. We did need to chase up quite a bit afterwards to try and get up to that 92%. I think we were probably more like 60 or 70 attending on the day, and then did quite a lot of chasing afterwards for those that couldn't attend. The data working group really helpful again in trying to kind of chase people and get that buy-in and push up responses, because we were really, it was important to us to get representation from all across the charity. There's so many different teams delivering services and sort of more operational core support, and then obviously the fundraiser. So we really wanted to make sure that the plan that the evidence we were basing our plan on was representative and might be effective. So yeah, this was kind of a little slide that kind of shows you our results, and we were pretty good on things like uses, like above benchmarks for that. Leadership was quite a nice one to see, that people thought we had quite good leadership around data, but we were not so good on culture, on skills, and on analysis. And we also did a little qualitative question in our survey just to try and get people's sentiment about how they felt about data. And you can see there was some kind of things in there about, oh, it's a bit clunky, you know, we need improvement. People were worried about things like security, but there was some quite hopeful words in there as well around things are getting better and there's improvement and we have some hope there. So yeah, as you can see, we did score lowest in those three areas, but that really helped me to then shape what I was going to put into the strategy to board. So those became our focus areas, and having that analysis on the workshop stuff was really useful for that too. The board approved it in May, and we've done some kind of staff-wide sort of presentations and comms around both the assessment and what was in the strategy, and kind of get roadmaps for teams. And yeah, really focusing on the key themes that came out of those assessments as part of that. And yeah, our work plan for the coming year, Ray that's on this call has been really helping me to do some surveys around the charity around what do teams need for their data skills training. So we've got a training program developed for that that are based on what people have told us there. And we're developing a policy around data governance and trying to get things like data glossaries and really agreeing on terms and what we mean by data and what we want to do with it. We have lots of data visualization projects around that analysis theme. We have some really good dashboards now on some of our service sort of things that we want to measure. We're using Power BI and Fabric semantic models for that. And we've got lots of further projects underway for next year, especially around data accessibility on some of our income generation stuff, acquisition, retention on various programs. And we are looking at impact measurement as well, trying to introduce a framework for collecting evidence against the strategic outcomes for the whole charity. So that'll be quite a big focus of our work too. But all of the next steps that we have are pretty linked to both the things that we did when we were looking at questions we couldn't answer and trying to get to the like, can we answer those questions? And also using the evidence that we'd had from the maturity assessments to really say, you know, we have quite a good evidence base that these are things that people feel like we should be fixing or at least trying to get better at. So yeah, it was really useful for us to have that. And that's me. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you so much, Keith. That's really interesting. And of course, obviously, I'm massively into impact measurement. So it's really great to hear stories a little while on. So, I mean, this is less than a year, actually, since you completed your assessment. So there's obviously been a huge amount of activity since then. I would absolutely encourage anyone who's got any questions for Keith to put them in the Q&A. We're going to move over to invite Yasmin Friedmann to now speak to us from Neath Port Talbot Council.
Hello. So let's bring up my presentation. It's coming. There we are. So about us a little bit. Great. So I'm head of data sitting in digital services in Neath Port Talbot Council. We're a local authority in South Wales, not too big, as you can see, somewhere between Cardiff and Swansea. We have fantastic nature, the waterfall country in Neath, if anybody knows. Very beautiful area, all the way down to Port Talbot with the steelworks, the Tata Steelworks. The population is 142,000 people that the council is taking care of, and there are 3,000 staff. So why did we do a data maturity assessment? So I came into my role 2 years ago. The role was new, and I started talking to people and quickly had some anecdotal evidence on the important data assets and how people interacted with and used data. In order to start working, though, on most important issues, it was quite clear to me that I needed to be methodical about getting a better view of the picture across the organization so that I can later on get back into any of my plans that I would want to put in place. And a data maturity assessment was just the tool. What I liked about Data Orchard was that they had their own maturity in this space, the research they have done to back up the assessment and the questions. And to be fair, the fact that I saw that Scottish Government was heavily using this tool across many of their departments and organizations. So I felt quite confident that we will benefit a lot from working with this tool. So we took on the gold package that was offered because of the level of support that we had been, that was coming along with this, with the assessment and the report at the end, which is very important in our corporate world. So the way we went about this is So the plan was to open it up to all members of staff, but we started off with presenting the assessment to the what we call higher level managers or accountable managers. They did the assessment, and we had a workshop, an initial workshop with them that was online, if I remember correctly. Yes. And then those managers promoted the assessment across their teams. It was open for 1 month, and after which we presented the results in an in-person meeting with the senior management, and even more input was collected at that point. So to engage with staff, we had a few email and PR pushes, and we showed them this kind of thing, where here on the left, we showed them how long it is taking to finish the assessment so that they don't think it's a whole day thing or quite scary. And here we kind of were showing how many people already finished the assessment. So every time we did a push, you can see here, there was a jump in the numbers. So very helpful to follow up. Finally, we had about 350 people completing the assessment. So I think quite a good result. So this is what the post-assessment engagement looked like. I think it's Sian there at the front, possibly. We came together, about 60 managers, to hear about the main results. So, more or less the minute the full results are in, Libby can create all this treasure trove of graphs, an analysis of the results per question, per theme. And so we collected a few of the most interesting highlights to present to the managers quickly after the assessment was closed. We also ran an exercise in this configuration to write down actionable, for managers to write down actionable ideas and rate them between each other. So they would all kind of put down some ideas in their own tables, and then they were walking around and putting stars on other people's ideas. And we collected this as insights on what's popular, what people need, what are the pain points. So the popular ideas included reducing silo working, setting up a data catalog, providing more training on data, and streamlining the way data is input into our systems. And so this all was taken into account in the final report, and that report was then discussed with the chief exec. And in that meeting, we got a strong backup and a promise to support us as we started implementing some of the recommendations that appear in the report. So the report gives you a highlight of what your maturity is, and a few highlights and focus points, and then about 10 recommendations for actions, and not only actions, but the outcome expected from a certain action for each of those actions. So what did we get from doing such an exercise? First of all, we had put discussion on data at the forefront of people's minds, much more than they were used to thus far, and in a very structured way. And that gave people some focus. The report we received was, on one side, very detailed analysis of each of the questions asked. And with that, we can interact at any point in the future. The written report was also detailed, and 10 recommendations for actions and expected outcomes. Some of these recommendations we had already recognized and were starting to work on, but the assessment gave us strong backing by independent data professional body that we're not going in the wrong way. And also the pre and post engagement, pre and post report engagement with those managers gave us this also qualitative input on who would like to engage with us further, what training do people need, and what are the main pain points. It gave me support when I was writing our data strategy, especially around what I call missions. I find that I go back to that report ever so often, making sure I'm still not losing focus, not losing what is important, keeping the focus. Yes. So, yeah. So as I said, data strategy is now finished and going to the website soon. The main recommendations of the report are being addressed now, mainly that of creating a data catalog, which we are working on at the moment, managing address data and how it integrates across our many systems. We're starting with council tax and business rates for that project. What also happened is that people are now approaching us and asking us to help them link systems, understand the data, improve the data, see what other data is out there for them to link to. So we have full tables and we've got many plans, and the future I feel very optimistic about it. So that was me and Neath Port Talbot.
So I just wanted to just summarize perhaps some of the key points that we've seen in the assessment. I suppose exploring the internal landscape is a key thing, and certainly, the whole process that sits alongside the assessment is really about engaging people and exploring how things are going. It's also about strategic planning. So in both Yasmin and Keith's cases, they both went on to develop data strategies. Sometimes organisations don't do a data strategy. They maybe just act on some other activities or invest in some skills or take different approaches in terms of what they do. But commonly, I would say the data maturity assessment is either a step towards taking a data maturity to starting a data strategy, or perhaps baselining where you're at if you've already begun one. Comparing with peer organisations, we do have a huge benchmarking data set now of all kinds of organisations, and as you said, evidencing the progress made. Some examples of internal benchmarking, and importantly, I should say, internal benchmarking is how different parts of the organisation might see data maturity. So the tool very often the customization includes sort of an internal team structure to look partly about how representative your participation has been, but also about seeing how different parts of the organisation may see data maturity, and perhaps where some parts may be doing really, really well with data and others might not. And so those sort of disparities are worth delving into. And I think the results, these are just taken from the treasure trove of charts that you get, but you can see what the range of responses is. There are a lot of agreement and everyone thinks the organisation's doing brilliantly, or is there a lot of disagreement and everyone thinks it's doing very badly? So you can kind of get some of that review. You get an overall summary report for the bronze package and all of the other packages that just gives you an overview of where your strengths and weaknesses are, how you compare to benchmarks, and some suggestions on where you might improve. So this is just from a kind of really high level, and I think this is a really important thing about how much appetite your audience has, as well as budget, obviously, but how much appetite there is for the level of detail. So we do provide a very simple, high-level report exploring each of the 7 themes and looking at where you are, how you compare, and what the next steps might look like. These are a couple of examples from the benchmarking. I don't know if anyone's been to our other events and our State of the Sector events where we look at our visualizations, as we say, which is where organisations are and how they compare with the benchmark groups, and we can do that in quite customised ways for all organisations. This is an example of the reassessment process. And I think this is with quite a small organisation that's done an assessment with very small numbers of staff. But what's really interesting is the chart on the right, which is the sort of before and after. And if you look closely, you'll see they seem to have actually gone backwards on skills. And I think it's worth pointing out that it isn't always a linear journey to progress. And sometimes, as we've reflected with this organisation, is people didn't know what they didn't know. And so having gone back to an assessment some years later, their awareness made them actually score themselves lower. Anyway, that's just a quick summary of some of the applications. I should be completely open about our pricing. We have a set of pricing which we try to accommodate, the different income levels within the sector. Our tool is designed and born from the non-profit sector, and we're very committed to the non-profit sector. So we have tiered pricing that will range from £2,000 plus VAT up to £11,500 plus VAT for non-profit organisations, and we have slightly higher pricing for commercial organisations. Do keep in touch. I think Libby's going to drop a link to the form into the chat now. Do get in touch with us if you'd like to arrange a call, and we'd be really happy to talk to you about doing a data maturity assessment with your organisation. Do also come to our future events. I've got 3 of them listed there. One is tomorrow. So we have the Non-Profit Data Vote Club, which has a different theme every month. It's completely free to come to. If you work in the non-profit sector, do come along, meet professional peers, chew over some meaty subject of your choice with a group of other professionals. Tomorrow is dealing with messy data, so do come to that. We've also got a course preview the following week on the 20th of November. We do a 5-week, 2-hour course for leaders in the non-profit sector, very much built around the data maturity themes. And finally, on Wednesday, the 27th of November, we are running a session on data maturity at scale. So if you are part of a network, or you run, or a part of an umbrella or infrastructure organisation, do come along to that event on the 27th. We'll be hearing from Scottish Government, we will be hearing from 10GM in Greater Manchester, and we will be hearing from Every Youth, which is a funder in youth homelessness, where the whole groups of organisations have gone through a data maturity assessment process together. And that brings us firmly on to 1 o'clock, where we should all go and get some lunch. So I will stop sharing my screen there, and very much look forward to any future conversations with you. We will follow up with a quick evaluation. I'd like to finish with an absolutely enormous thank you to Yasmin Friedmann and to Keith Scott for sharing their stories with us today. We really, really appreciate that, and it's really, really exciting and wonderful to hear all of your progress, and we wish you all the best in the future. Maybe you'll come back in a few years. Okay, thank you to everyone. Take care.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
so much. Bye.